Oh no, that's a shooter. That's a shooter. There's another one to the right. Big. Dude, he's a big deer. Hit the ground call. He's a tank. He's at 72.
What's up, guys? Hopefully you enjoyed the episode of Grit last week. We really appreciate you checking out the video. In this hunt recap, we're going to focus on the encounter we had with that big buck. So this will be short and to the point, but watching how this buck behaved was really interesting, and seeing this in person really solidified some concepts for me personally, and I'm hoping this will be helpful for you too. We're going to focus on two main points here: setting up on inside corners and how the deer in this encounter were using the wind and the thermals to move through the woods with an advantage. To start, let's talk about inside corners. A traditional inside corner is created at the windward corner of a field. Here's an example of an inside corner. You'll see here that we have an open field, and then let's assume there are destination locations here and here. These could be food, water, or doe bedding during the rut. Instead of walking through the open field like this, deer prefer to stay on the edge of the field in the cover, creating a concentration point right here at the inside corner. With the wind blowing out into the field, you're safe from getting winded, and the deer are still able to move safely into the wind. This concept of an inside corner is how we decided where to sit that morning. And this strategy allowed us to confidently go in blind without ever scouting this spot. That morning, the wind was blowing like this. We assumed there would be a thermal pull down the drainage like this. We accessed the ridge like this and set up right here. We hoped that if we were high enough by the field edge, we would be able to avoid the thermal pull. And this is an important point because bucks will usually use the thermal pull to check the ridge top before heading up. We were set up early that morning, and a half hour after it got light, we had a doe move across the ridge like this and stop to browse on acorns right here. Right after she moved through, the smaller of the two bucks came up from the bottom like this. And right after he got to the top, the big buck also came up from the bottom like this. Looking back at this scenario, it makes sense why the deer were moving like this. The doe was able to travel into the wind out to the oak flat, and the bucks could monitor the oak flat from below while the thermals were pulling down in the morning. The deer were then set up to move into the primary bedding area with the wind at their face like this. One of the most consistent patterns we've observed hunting whitetails is their desire to move with scent and sight advantage. Combining the wind and thermals gives them an extra sense of security in addition to their line of sight. Another scenario where this occurs is on the leeward side of a ridge. Dan Infalt talks about this quite a bit and refers to this as a thermal tunnel. Late in the morning, when thermals start to rise, deer can travel the top of a ridge with the wind blowing like this and the thermals pulling up like this. In this scenario, they're set up with a scent advantage from two directions, and during the rut, this makes it very efficient to search for does. Lastly, I want to mention the pulley system that Jake rigged up because I thought this was really cool, and it made dragging the deer up the steep ridge really easy. The setup is super simple. He picked up a pulley and rope from the hardware store. We attached the pulley to a tree uphill from us. We then attached one end of the rope to our saddles and the other end to the deer. Jake and I started up by the pulley and moved downhill, pulling the deer up. We moved the pulley up the ridge a couple times, and the deer was at the top in no time. So let's quick summarize this episode. First, inside corners are deadly setups. The deer feel like they still have the advantage moving into the wind, and you're safe from getting winded because they don't want to walk through the open field. This creates a great funnel on the windward corner of a field. Next, deer like to use the wind and the thermals together to get an extra advantage. This helps them feel secure, and it's an efficient way to search for does during the rut. And lastly, if you're hunting hill country, do yourself a favor and grab a pulley and rope from the hardware store. It'll make your life a lot easier when you go to recover your deer. So that sums up the 5th hunt recap. As always, thanks a lot for checking out the video. If you guys have any feedback or questions, drop a comment on the video and we'll get back to you as soon as possible. Have a great weekend. We'll see you next week for episode 6 of Grit, which is part 1 of our hunt down in Indiana.